Hello. My name is Jones, and today we are going to talk about crisis intervention. A crisis is a situation or period in an individual's life that produces an overwhelming emotional response. This event occurs when an individual is confronted by a certain life circumstance or stressor that he or she cannot effectively manage by using his or her usual coping skills. Crisis is an unexpected event that can create uncertainty to an individual and has been viewed as a threat to that person's important goals. There are 4 stages to a crisis. Okay, the first stage of crisis occurs when the person is confronted by a stressor. Exposure to this stressor would result to anxiety. At this point, the individual then tries to handle things by using his or her customary coping skills, okay, which fail to work out. Then we move on to the second stage of crisis. The second stage of crisis occurs when the person realizes that his usual coping ability are ineffective in dealing with anxiety. As the person becomes aware of this unsuccessful effort in dealing with the perceived stressor, they move on to the next stage of crisis, okay, where the individual would then try to deal with the crisis using new methods of coping. Okay, so in this stage, the individual tries to use new methods of coping. That is in the third stage. Okay, in the stage 2, you do not use traditional, but you try to go for new methods of dealing with a stressor. In stage 3, okay, individual try to deal with the crisis using the new methods. Okay, then the fourth stage of crisis takes place when the person's coping attempts of resolving the crisis fail. So when all efforts to try to deal with a crisis fail, the individual experiences a disequilibrium and will also experience significant distress. So there are 4 stages to a crisis. So there's stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. In stage 1, individual uses traditional coping mechanism which are going to fail. Then in stage 2, an individual realizes that traditional methods of coping mechanisms are not working. Okay, then stage 3, an individual tries to use new methods of coping with stress, but all these new methods fail. Then fourth stage takes place when the person's all tried coping mechanisms fail. Then the patient is going to experience some kind of disequilibrium and significant distress. Okay, in terms of types of crisis, we have maturation crisis, we have situational crisis, and we have adventitious crisis. When you say maturation crisis, also called developmental crisis, you can look at Erik Erikson, who talked about some challenges or some crises that one needs to adapt to as they are growing or that one passes through. So the developmental crisis. So there are predictable events in a person's life which includes getting married, having a baby, and leaving home for the first time. So this is part of maturation crisis. Then we have situational crisis, unexpected or sudden events that imperils one's integrity. Included in this type of crisis are loss of a job, death of a loved one or relative, and also the physical or emotional illness of a family member or an individual may cause a situational crisis. Okay, then we have adventitious crisis, also called social crisis. Included in this category are natural disasters like floods, earthquakes or hurricanes, war, terrorism attacks, riots, and violent crimes such as rape and murder. It may cause adventitious crisis. Okay, so what are some of the crisis interventions that can be employed? So when I talk of crisis interventions, we are referring to the methods that can be used to offer immediate, short-term help to individuals who experience an event that produces emotional, mental, physical, and behavioral distress or problems, or in short, causes a crisis. So the proper guide for effective crisis intervention include assisting an individual to view the event or issue in a different perspective, assisting the individual to use the existing support system, okay, and also assisting the individual in learning new methods of coping that will help resolve the crisis. So they learn new coping skills. Okay, these are some of the crisis interventions. Okay, so today we're looking at crisis, of which we have defined a crisis as necessarily a situation or period in an individual's life that produces an overwhelming emotional response. Then we have talked about stages of crisis, of which we have said there's first stage, second stage, third stage, and fourth stage. What differentiates these stages is necessarily what is happening within these stages. Stage 1, an individual has realized that there is a stressful event and tries to use the ordinary coping skills that they use, which necessarily fail. And then they will proceed to stage 2, 3, and 4. In stage 4, they have completely failed using all the necessary methods that are there. Tried asking from people, tried and all that, then it has not necessarily helped. So they have passed through all the stages and they have failed. They have failed to solve their problems, so they become the client may experience some disequilibrium and experience some significant distress. Then the types of crisis that an individual may face include maturation crisis, situational crisis, and adventitious crisis. Then we talked about crisis interventions that can necessarily help an individual. Okay, so from me, I'm saying thank you and keep studying.